Today's date is March the 18th, 2024. And in continuing with the MasterPeace Knowledge Series, I am very honored to bring back Matt Hazen, Carolyn Mansfield, and Dr. Robert Young. Welcome back to the broadcast.
Hi, Christopher. How you guys doing?
Doing great, guys. Thank you so much for being with me. So today's discussion that we're bringing forward, because there's been an enormous amount of talk for many years about aluminum, the topic and the title is MasterPeace versus aluminum. Matt, do you want to start with this? Because we're going to get into some urine samples and also some soil samples to help educate people at how powerful and brilliant MasterPeace is acting against this element.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there's been discussion for decades and discussions around natural zeolite. Zeolite, there's, I believe, over 40 types and that are natural. They do have synthetic zeolites. That's not what we're talking about today. Anytime we're talking about man playing God techniques and trying to create something like that, that's not what we're talking about. Synthetic zeolite has been shown in countless studies to give up its aluminum molecule, which would actually contaminate or be raising someone's levels of aluminum. What we're talking about is natural clinoptilolite, which is a grass product, which means good underneath normal use. It's been proven to be safe. So, and what we're wanting to do here is just show people's urinalysis and blood results that we did in the study, where we also tested for graphene oxide and some microplastics and other things. But today we need to focus on the aluminum. Because if we were dealing with a product that when you take it, such as MasterPeace, if it was giving up aluminum, or then what we should expect to see from that would be a raising of their aluminum levels, if that, of course, that makes sense. So what we want to do is we want to look at, because we actually did study 3 people and their aluminum levels that we got in their urinalysis test, properly provoked, I believe, with 1,500 milligrams of DMSA, and then also the blood test results that we tested for aluminum. And that's what I'm pretty excited about.
Well, that's fantastic, Matt. Well, I believe, Caroline, you have a PowerPoint presentation. We can start to walk people through this and commentary with Dr. Robert Young as well.
Yeah, sure. Let me just share the screen with you now and I can talk through the results. So I'm just going to, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So during the study, everybody knows about the intracellular toxicity test that we did. But at baseline, we also ran a urinalysis test, which was provoked with DMSA at 30 milligrams per kilogram of body weight for each test subject. And we did a baseline and we tested at 35 days. Now, the testing was only ever going to be a baseline and a 35-day or a second test, which we then decided to be a 35-day test. But because the intracellular toxicity results were so phenomenal, we decided to carry on and do the 90-day testing. But we didn't carry on with the urinalysis testing at that point. So let me share with you the urinalysis testing that we did at baseline. So
and what products, Carolyn, did they actually take? What was the protocol going into the study?
So the protocol going into the study was taking MasterPeace, which was 5 drops 2 times a day, which every test subject took throughout the whole of the study. But at one point, Matt, I think you wanted to look to add in the zeolite powder from the Master Restore product, which was being developed at the time. So bringing in those that zeolite powder, the sourced powder that goes into the Master Restore for more gut remediation of preventing toxicity going in through the gut. So we did introduce that into the study. Now, one test subject didn't take that powder, but 2 of the test subjects did. Yeah. So throughout the study. So there's been a bit of questioning about that, but that's what we did for the study.
So to be clear, all 3 people were compliant with taking MasterPeace?
They all took MasterPeace, yeah. Or they said it was the easiest thing to take. They loved it. The one test subject who didn't take the powder, she just didn't like taking the powder. So that was it. And because when I first approached these test subjects to do the study, they were very happy to take the drops. So introducing the powder at a later date was something new. So one of the test subjects didn't want to do that. So, okay, so let's just have a look at the results here. If we just go down to slideshow, so I can bring that up a bit bigger for you. So on the baseline test results for test subject 1, you can see her aluminum was above the reference range. It was outside reference range. It was at 39. And after 35 days of taking MasterPeace, her aluminum dropped down to 2.7. So now it's within the reference range. So that was just taking MasterPeace at 5 drops 2 times a day. And if we just quickly go
that was the lady that only took MasterPeace.
That's correct. Yeah.
And her other levels didn't look like they just plummeted, because that's a drastic decrease. You would think maybe if someone didn't provoke the test correctly, or if they didn't rinse and repeat the way they are provoking it, that you could expect to see, you know, if they didn't take the provoking agent, then a lot wouldn't be coming out. And so you would expect all those other levels to have dropped down a bunch too, but that's not what happened. She showed the biggest decrease in just the aluminum out of all those heavy metals.
It appears so, yes, because when we provoke a test, we're trying to bring out the metals. It's a bit like when you clean a dirty pan, you know, you're scrubbing it. So you're going to provoke things to come out because, you know, heavy metals, they do go deep into cell and tissue. So they're not going to be hanging around, you know, in the system. So we do have to provoke them to get them out. And this is the reason why we use DMSA for that reason. So yes, you can see that the aluminum came down significantly for this test subject. And, you know, a few other markers, which we're not sort of going over today, we're just concentrating on the aluminum. There's variables, because when we're doing heavy metal detoxification, it can take months, if not years, to bring people's levels down when they're on a detox protocol. So to see levels come down at, you know, just within 35 days is quite significant. And it was interesting that it was the aluminum that, you know, came down more significantly for her, considering all these questions around zeolites and aluminum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And if we just, do you want to just quickly go over her intracellular toxicity test? Because at 35 days, we introduced aluminum at the recommendation of Dr. Young, because that wasn't at the borderline test for the intracellular toxicity test. So we don't know what her baseline would have been, not borderline, baseline. But at 35 days, she was at borderline at 176.73 nanomoles per liter. And at the 90-day mark, that had come down again to 38.62 nanomoles per liter.
Wow.
So
which is significant, and that kind of correlates with her urinalysis test, both significant drops.
Yeah, it just obviously continued to drop. And had we done another provocated urinalysis test, we probably would have seen that come down in relation to what we're seeing here in her blood results.
Incredible.
Now, Robert, Dr. Robert Young, seeing these results, have you seen them this strong in such a short time for aluminum with the product?
No, I've never seen anything like this before. Aluminum is very difficult to pull out of the connective tissue. The body naturally pushes it out into the fatty tissues. And so what you would generally see is numbers going up over a period of time and then coming down as the body's detoxing or dumping its waste into the interstitium organ or interstitial fluid. So I was quite surprised, happily surprised, and that aluminium was one of the major drops that we saw, in addition to the graphene oxide. You know, I would have expected the same thing from lead or from mercury, which was the case. Those levels were very slow in coming down because the body is constantly trying to get rid of that max. They didn't go up, but they didn't come down. So it's going to take more time to remove lead and mercury out than, shockingly, seeing aluminium come down significantly was excellent news, because aluminium is highly cytotoxic, genotoxic, and it's been associated with attention deficit and Alzheimer's conditions. So both neurological disruption. Aluminium interferes with neurological function and also respiratory, and so this is one element that you want to see this type of result. But I've never seen anything like this that in and of itself is non-toxic. So MasterPeace is non-toxic. It doesn't add anything or contribute to the toxicity of the body. So yeah, I think with the secondary study that we'll be doing, we'll be paying more attention, and that's why I suggested that we add that as one of the test elements that is being found in the human body due to it being aerosol, due to the fact that it's now in our soils, and of course Matthew's got evidence from that, which from farmers in his area. We were always concerned as a farmer of 40 acres. The aluminium was a great concern, and besides other elements. But these things are now in our soil. They're in the plants. They're in our water. So everyone is going to show some level of aluminium in the blood tests, in the urine tests, and those are two different tests, by the way. We test vascular, we test urine, because urine is a product of interstitial fluid, and that interstitial fluid is the fluid that surrounds all of the cells. It's 80% of the extracellular fluids, where blood is only 20%. So we get and the blood is always constantly pushing it out into the interstitial fluid. So you're gonna get a false positive, where in reality the majority of the aluminium is going to appear in the interstitium fluids, which are called the interstitial fluid. And the product of that, of course, we're testing, which is the urine. So the urine tests is a great test for determining reduction in aluminium, as well as comparing that then to the blood.
Awesome. I'll let you continue on there, Caroline. This is fascinating.
Sure, let's go to test subject number 2 now. So on her urine test, her level was within reference range, but it was at 4.1. And if we go on to her second test, it went down to 2.5. So even though it's within reference range, it was still tracking down by taking MasterPeace for those 35 days. And if we just go on to her intracellular toxicity test, her aluminium started off at 97 in the tolerable range, and this was at day 35. And at day 90, it still remained within the tolerable range, but it was at 13144. So I would say that she was obviously having to pull out, more aluminium from, as Dr. Young says, the interstitial tissue through the body fluids. These things, usually do take time, but it still remained within the tolerable range. It didn't obviously go up out of that range. And if we just quickly go on to test subject number 3, who started off with the urinalysis test at 2.1, again within reference range as such, and came down to 1.9. So it still tracked down. And just to go over the intracellular toxicity test, at day 35, it was at 157. And then again at day 90 at 24.
Wow.
So tracking down. Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's amazing. I notice on the slides here, barium went up on a couple of the people, the test subjects. Where's the
Right.
where's the barium coming from? Because I know we talk about with the aerosol spraying with chemtrails, it's barium, aluminum, strontium, but that's why I was looking at the barium there. It doesn't seem it goes down much. It actually goes up. Where could people be getting that? Is it again through aerosol or food or?
I think we know it's been shown as one of the elements in the chemtrails, the barium.
Dr. Robert Young, do you want to speak on that too, please?
Well, Caroline's correct. It's one of the listed ingredients in what is being aerosoled. So it's going to end up in the soil, which will end up in the food, which ends up in the water as well, you know, into our bodies. And just bring note, I mean, across the board, we're seeing substantial decreases in a variety of different toxic elements. If they do go up, that's why we have to do long-term studies to see the trend of what's happening. And the trend is some of these other elements are dropping down as the body is releasing these compounds from the connective tissue. A lot of people don't realize that when the body vascular fluid pushes everything out into the interstitial fluid. And the interstitial fluid is the body ocean. It's the fluid that surrounds every cell of the human body. We have 70 plus trillion cells in the human body. So it's a large body of water. If these elements build up, they will and can have a tendency to push them back into the vascular fluids. So we're always testing interstitial fluid and vascular fluids and comparing that to urine, which is a product of the interstitial fluid. So it's important to get a reference in that. But if the body cannot get rid of these toxins, it pushes it into the connective tissue. It's like a holding tank. And the connective tissue is, if the body can't get rid of, you're exercising, and you're building up lactic acid, the body will push that into the connective tissue. That's why you feel it in the muscle. You don't feel pain in the interstitial fluid. You don't feel pain in the vascular fluid. You feel pain in the connective tissue. So you feel it in the muscle, okay? So it is held in the muscle until it can then be removed out through perspiration, urination, defecation, or respiration. The orifices of the body. But the reason why we feel pain is associated with these poisons that we're talking about, these toxins. And so you're not going to feel the effects of aluminum or barium or even lactic acid if they're being properly eliminated through the 4 and 5 orifices of the human body. For women, they have an extra one, which is for menstruation. And these fluids can be tested, and that's why we're testing urine. It's the simplest way for us to get an idea how effective MasterPeace is, or how a compound that we would test. So these are unique tests that go beyond just testing the blood. I mean, and I want to emphasize that, because the blood is 20% of the extracellular fluid, but when we talk about the entire body fluids, it represents only 10%. 10%. And that's a very important point, because we want to get as much information without it being hidden in the interstitial fluid or in the connective tissue. So that's why we test the interstitial fluid in addition to testing urine. So we get information, and we also test intracellular. That's the other fluid. We don't emphasize that as much because all the intracellular fluids of the cells, all their waste products are being pushed into the interstitial fluid. So that's the emphasis on that. So the blood push toxins in, the cells push their toxins into an organ which collects this waste. You could say that the interstitial fluid is the body ocean, but it's also the collector of waste that it's trying to remove out through perspiration, respiration, urination, defecation, and for women, menstruation. So these are very important points so you don't get lost in why we're doing this. We're testing aluminum because if it's there, it's going to be showing up in the interstitial fluid and then in the urine, okay? Because that's how the body gets rid of this, or through perspiration, okay? But urine's more accessible, so we test it for that. To actually see a reduction in the aluminium, to see that reduced, is a significant event and shows the efficacy of MasterPeace.
Absolutely.
So I want to end with that. It shows the efficacy of a product that is non-toxic to be able to collect or cage an element that is very difficult to pull out of connective tissue or fatty tissue. So if it's going into the brain or to the breast, yes, your risk goes up for breast cancer. So aluminium is associated with breast cancer. If it's not being eliminated from urine, then it gets pushed out into the brain, another fatty tissue, you see? And you don't want it there. You want it out of your body. So we take, as an analogy, we need something that's like tweezers, that has an electromagnetic sink that will attract the aluminium into the MasterPeace cage, which is multidimensional, that will attract because of its opposite polarity. Okay, aluminum oxide carries a surface charge which is positive. It's attracted to the cage or the MasterPeace, which contains a material called zeolite Z. Zeolite Z. It is multidimensional and collects it, holds onto it, captures it, so that then the body can rid itself of it. So that's the exit point too, which is a very important point. You can test reductions in the blood. Okay, stay with me on this. It's very important. But the blood is always going to purify itself. It's going to push it out into the interstitial fluid. So if you're not testing the interstitial fluid in the urine, you may be getting a false positive, that you're reducing it. The fact we're seeing it reduced in the urine should end this conversation, okay, about aluminum, or aluminium, as they say in English, proper English, that this product, MasterPeace, with its multidimensional zeolite Z, is not only collecting it, but it's showing a reduction in that through the exit orifices, i.e. the urine.
It's wonderful. Wonderful, Robert. Caroline, do you want to finish up here with the slideshow?
Let me just show you something else. So on geoengineeringwatch.org, there's a lot of information about, potentially where this aluminium is coming from in regards to, cloud seeding or chemtrails, whatever we want to call it. And I just want to quickly play you this little short video, like 30 seconds long, on their site.
So here's the big dogs. Since 2006, the snow on Mount Shasta has 5 times more aluminum, 61,000 micrograms per liter, than the soil underneath it. Pure white snow has more aluminum in it than mud. Can you beat that? The snow water is unsafe to drink on Mount Shasta. How can white snow have more aluminum than mud? Now, the aluminum content of rain should be 0, with a pH of 5.5. When jets are not spraying, maybe so. When the jets are spraying, we get up to 13,100 micrograms per liter and pH up to 100 times normal. It goes really alkaline. This is over times the federal safety limits for drinking water. Don't drink the water.
Yeah, I thought that was quite powerful. Let me just stop screen sharing with you.
Yes, that was
And
very
I have to say something about that last comment. Is that you heard the word that it goes 100 times more alkaline, but aluminium oxide has equal amounts of alkalinity. It has equal amounts of acidity, depending on how you're measuring this. Dual parts. The fact of the matter is the acidic parts to aluminium are responsible for reducing, if you're testing it, reducing vascular and interstitial pH, and is a risk factor for human health. So I want to point that out. I'm not suggesting that hyperalkalinity is good. Here again, the ideal pH of the interstitial fluid is between 8.4 to 9. In relationship to the blood, which is at 7.365 to 7.4. It's a very narrow range of perfection, and the blood will always purify itself in that way. So any type of hyperalkalinity or hyperacidity in a material such as aluminium oxide is not for human consumption. And yes, we are finding it in the water, in the soil, in the air, in the snow melt. It is everywhere. Everyone has been contaminated if you're living on this planet. It also has a very high melting point, and the residues of this were found after the DEW attack in Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii, Lahaina, were aluminum oxide. And I can only conjecture on this that the aluminum oxide, as an aftermath of that wildfire, and it was, here again, at very high temperatures, was a result of chemtrailing, aerosoling.
Wow. That's something. And speaking of the aerosoling, Matt, you've got want to remind people, we talked about this last year. You had some incredible soil samples that were done right across the United States. Do you want to touch on that too?
Yeah, it's definitely an indicator of what we're dealing with in terms of aluminum poisoning on our planet. So we can imagine in America, the largest organic style farming supply distributor is a company, Pro something agriculture. It's Mike. He's a 77-year-old gentleman. He wants to remain anonymous. And what we see is, first off, he does 4,500 tests on farm field tests a year. So he has 4,500 tests, and half of them are Amish and Mennonites who have never used poisons or harmful insecticides or pesticides on their farm fields. And so starting about 30 years ago, we've seen started to be an unnormal jump in aluminum levels. And I actually have quite a few of them right here. I know we're not going to be able to see them quite that good, but if you go down to the very bottom, second line, I believe, or maybe our third, is fourth line. Fourth line is aluminum. And you can see, anyways, when you look at these tests, you'll see numbers like the level of sodium, 0.6, 0.68, other bases, 4.9, 4.4, exchangeable hydrogen, you got calcium. These are all base saturations. You got exchangeable cations, calcium, magnesium, potassium. They have trace elements like boron, iron, manganese. All these are very normal levels. The one thing that isn't is aluminum, 756, 973. So when numbers are supposed to be 100 or less, and most of them are, 2, 5, the aluminum is off the charts. This one right here, 611, 871. So what it means is this: every year, they take a 6-inch by 6-inch by 6-inch soil sample. They send it to Mike. Mike looks at their soil for the year and says, this is how much you need of humic acid or humates or fulvic acid. This is what you need for this. This is what you need for that. And it gets their levels down to the right level. And what you're seeing is every single year, what totals out to 1,000 pounds per acre, up as a minimum, basically, up to 2,500 pounds of aluminum. This is microscopic, nanometer-sized aluminum that is showing up on clean farm fields that have never had any type of stuff like this put on there, and it's appearing out of the thin blue air. And so, you know, I think aluminum toxicity is well documented at this point to cause be a big factor in contributing, or, you know, associated with autism, any dementia, any type of neurological stuff. I think that's, everybody is aware of that. So, and the big elephant in the room is chemical radiation and graphene, right? So we got graphene oxide, which can literally wipe us out if we're not careful. And so, you know, that's a pretty much an imminent danger, I think it should be called. And so the ability of having something that is highly safe, very gentle, but extremely effective at reducing and lowering, provably through urinalysis and blood tests that show significant reductions in specifically graphene oxide and aluminum. It's you know, that's what's important. That's really what's important here. You know, we have to have solutions. So we can spend all day pointing the finger at how it got to be here, whether it was just capitalists and shareholders that didn't give a darn about stuff in the Industrial Revolution and all of our combustible engines, or if we have evil psychopaths lurking in our midst. You know, there's quite a bit of evidence for all of it. But what we need to do is get the solution out there to the world, where we can be protected and survive in a world that the environment and ecosystem is highly polluted. And we have to do that. We have to save our race, our species. We have to save our world. That's paramount. So I really appreciate people like you, Christopher, that will fight for the truth and stand for the truth. We have the most incredible dream team on earth of the most purest intentioned good people that are flocking and migrating to this, and, you know, that are for the truth and for what we have to do here to help each other out and save ourselves. So I just wanted to say that before we wrap it up.
That's wonderful. Well, like, I can't, you know, articulate enough the importance of why we all come together here. We're not coming out ever with opinions. We're showing people verifiable evidence of what MasterPeace and what our testing has done. We're by no means perfect, but these lab results speak for themselves, from a urine sample, also from the blood side of it. So this is a very exciting time right now in our world. There is a lot of pushback that's coming back, as we're all recognizing now with MasterPeace. But as you said, Matt, we've got a great team of people here with Dr. Robert Young and Caroline and many others in the background. And we are going to push through this, and hopefully we're going to start to bring people to the table once we get this next round of testing, which will be finished roughly when? In June?
I would say, you know, 120 days from now, we should be able to have everything completed, done, results in, graphs made, and stuff like that. Now, I do believe periodically we're going to talk about what we're seeing as we make it through the 30, 60-day mark. So we'll bring out some good highlights and whatnot. But yeah, we're at Human Consciousness Support, we are going to spend our time, energy, and focus on getting studies, getting provable, irrefutable facts, findings. You know, we're going to spend our time on making this solution better and how to get this out to everybody. We're not going to worry about the other riffraff. We don't have time for any of that. There's a world to save.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here with me today. Was there anything else that you wanted to say, Dr. Robert Young or Caroline, before we leave?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm very much looking forward to the next study, because the first study was just simply an idea, and we were just rolling with it as it went, but we weren't expecting to have such great results. So now I'm really looking forward to this sort of double-blind placebo control study of 26 cohort. I think it's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
Awesome. And Dr. Robert Young?
Yeah, well, I want to you just say once again, I think I mentioned it already, and I continue to say this. I'm very, very proud to be part of a group that is looking for solutions to pollutions, and this, as I said with MasterPeace and the zeolite Z component that has been colloidalized in a marine plasma, is probably one of the best products I've ever seen in the last 30, 40 years. And I've been in the as a formulator for 40 plus years. And so I rarely see products like this. And I'm just happy that Matt is the helm. I mean, his heart and soul is part of this. He really sincerely, and I believe him, wants to help humanity, and preserve humanity, not only just for himself, but for his children and his children's children, for our future, which are our children. And there's lots of published research on this information. If you want to understand the human health risks for aluminium oxide, and aluminium hydroxide, I'm happy to provide any of that research. You can look it up on PubMed, one of the major resources for looking at research. But even though we're talking about it, I would suggest very strongly that MasterPeace may be the solution to a multiplicity of pollutants, of which one of them is aluminium. So I highly, encourage everyone who is listening to this to look at the research, and if you want to study it individually, get with your doctor, run some studies on this, urinalysis for aluminum, for graphene, for synthetic biology that's in your body, like PFOS, PFOA, etc., polyethylene glycol, hydrogel. I mean, there is so much that we're dealing with that people need to be aware of, and in one simple application of 3 drops 3 times a day or 5 drops twice a day, you begin the process of ridding these highly cytotoxic, genotoxic, and in many cases, magnetic toxic materials out of your body that is affecting your quality of life and the quantity of your life. So I'm very, very proud to be part of a team that is not thinking about themselves, but is thinking about this problem as a whole for all of humanity.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all for being with me here today. I look forward to continue this knowledge series and sharing our education to raise the consciousness level of mankind worldwide, because as you say, this is the solution to pollution. And I believe we're just touching tip of the iceberg right now of the incredible results that we're going to see in the very near future. So thank you all for being with me here today. I look forward to bringing you back all in the very near future. God bless.